The Towy Coracle is slightly different to other coracles, and one must remember that throughout history in this country, most of the major rivers, including the Boyne in Ireland and the Spey in Scotland, the River Wye, the Usk, the Dee, all at one time sported coracles. All of them of different construction, but the shape was generally the same, and I always like to refer to it as an Easter egg shape. You can see that the coracle can be manoeuvred with a single stroke, either with the right hand or the left hand, and you can pull yourself through the water with a sculling motion using both hands. Now I'm using ordinary pine, 11-inch board, 3'4" long or 40 inches long. You can see that I'm marking out the timber. I'm tapering off by 3/4 of an inch to allow me to get the shape that I need. And this is unique in coracle building for the Towy Coracle. This tipper is very important because it allows a builder to get symmetry. Once I've removed the waste from the plank, I just roughly shape it. And then we have to cut 2 slots to receive the framework of the coracle. And they're just a little wider than the lath itself, which is 1 1/8 wide and 3/16 of an inch thick. So I'm just marking it off. In fact, it's one of the few times you'll see me using a rule. Cut those 2 slots out on both sides. And cut an additional 2 slots to take the strap. The strap marks are 11 inches from each end and 2 inches from the sides. You can put a leather strap, you can put a nylon strap, you can put anything you like in there, as long as it's strong enough to hold the coracle. just tacking it in place and just putting my wrist there, and that gives me the right dimensions for the strap. Now this is the modern method of tacking it under the seat, but of course you can use a Tim tack or a nail. I just find this more convenient. Test it to make sure that the strap fits across your shoulders, and you can make necessary adjustments now to suit your shoulder width. An additional piece of equipment that we use in the Coracle, and it's a little wooden truncheon that's used to dispatch the fish very quickly. We offer the last rites to the fish, and so for that reason it's called a freeze. In Welsh it's called a knocker. The framework is cut from ash, and you need ash a plank 7 foot long with no knots if possible, and each lath is cut 3/16 of an inch thick by 1 1/8 inch wide, and as I say 7 foot long. I'm using a plank of wood here as a template, just so that I can have some idea of the width of the coracle, and that plank is about 3'4", which is the size of the coracle I'm going to make. Usually you would make the coracle to suit the user, and a rule of thumb is that if you can measure from your forehead to the ground, that would be about the size of the coracle that you would need. Obviously the taller you are, the longer the coracle, and by making the coracle longer, in order to maintain symmetry, the depth would be slightly greater as well. But for ordinary mortals, those 5'6", 5'7", 5'8", you need it about 11 inches under the seat. Now you can see I'm just roughly measuring the length and the breadth of the woven lath and making any adjustments that are necessary. Earlier on we saw that I tapered the seat, and it's at that stage that you taper the framework in line with those taper marks. This way you should be able to get a shape resembling half of an Easter egg, which is round in front and pointed in back. It's just a question now of sharing them out equally. There are 7 horizontal laths, 7 vertical laths, and 2 diagonals, and they're there to lock the whole framework together. And it's a pattern that seems to be quite universal when making a coracle. I'm just going to make a jig to hold the framework. This makes life easier. You could use just heavy stones in each corner or stake it down to the ground, but I'm just using an old dope and sticking 2 extra lugs on the end there just to give me a bit more width. I'm just using the available materials that are to hand at the time. I bent 2 pieces of soft metal into the general shape of the bow of the coracle. I've used ordinary roofing ties. This is quite a simple procedure as long as you make it strong enough to hold the frame. And by adding these timbers on top and below, you'll find that this works generally well. If you think that the laths are going to break, then don't be afraid to use boiling water on them. And I'm tying them in place onto the jig that I've made. Now, the reason I use cable ties is that they're easily removed and I can make all kinds of adjustments if I'm not quite happy with the shape. Once I've got the bow section fixed into the frame, we can set about readjusting, making sure that we share out the laths as equally as possible. Now I'm going to add the seat, and for this you need patience. I like to use boiling water here now on these laths to make sure that I don't get any breaks when I bend the laths up to take the seat. This is one of the reasons that we use ash, is that it's got long fibres and it doesn't break too easily. Threading the lath through the slots in the seat that we had cut previously, remembering to have the taper at the stern of the boat. Just a small box, an old box that we've been using for 50 years. It's just 11-inch pine box, knocked up with a few nails, but it acts as a guide as to the depth of the coracle. If I wanted to make it a little bit deeper, then I just add a piece of timber on top of the box so it extends the height under the seat. Now, in a traditional coracle, the builder used the materials that were available to him. When the coracle was first designed, you must remember there were no sawmill, there were just the materials that he could lay his hands on. And I'm using ash, but you could use willow. And the gunwale was constructed similar to basket work, but that's a very difficult skill to acquire. So we've devised a method here where we are using the timbers that we use for the framework to form a gunwale. And you can see now that this taper comes into place, that it, by following the seat, the shape comes itself. Using the cable ties, I just tie things in place temporarily. You notice that the first lath is fixed on the inside of the framework. We've tied it in place, we've got the general shape that we need. And every coracle will have a different shape because each one is made individually, so you can't get two exactly the same. Now I'm preparing to put the second lath in place, and this of course goes on the outside. So now the framework is sandwiched between two laths. In fact, it's a very primitive laminate in effect. The cable ties come into their own because they can be cut loose and reassembled in seconds. And if things are not quite right, they can be removed and reset. On the bends, I suggest that you use boiling water just to make sure that you don't crack the laths, because the last place you want to have a break is on the gunwale. You can see how easily it is to add or remove these cable ties so that you get symmetry in your coracle. It's all a question of practice, and it's all done by eye. It's very rarely I would use a measuring tool of any kind, except when I'm preparing the seats. But of course, the earliest coracles wouldn't have used nails at all. They would have just used the basket work around the top. Now I'm going to put in the aft section, again using boiling water, and following the line of the seat I'm going to try and get the shape of half of an Easter egg. Again, the cable ties come into their own. There is a set way of doing it, and the way I was taught is that you follow the rising sun. So you start on the left hand side and work to the right, and then work from the right back to the left. And when you come to put the aft section in, you do exactly the same thing. You start on the left hand side and go to the right, or go from the east to the west, and come back the other way. Now you can see that the coracle, without any help from me, is taking on its own shape, and this is because of the way that we cut our seat. Use a piece of string just to pull things into perspective, and this is only a temporary measure, but it does help to keep the shape. And put the aft laths in one by one, starting in the middle, and then work from side to side so that you put them in evenly as possible, so that you have symmetry on both sides of the coracle. I'm putting the second lath again, and you notice I'm working now from left to right, and as I go along I'm trying to adjust the shape. In fact, I'm continually changing the cable ties to enable me to get the shape that I really want, and what I'm happy with. This is the strap that goes underneath the seat, and that is what really holds the seat up. And here you see I'm just measuring under the seat and removing some of the waste now off the laths, so that I can have a better idea of what the coracle looks like. I'm making final adjustments before I nail those laths in place. Now it's a question, when you're satisfied that you've got everything shaded out properly, of drilling right through the gunwale and the lath, inserting, in this case I'm using copper nails, but you can use ordinary tin tacks, upholstery tacks, and just clench them. Now there's an important feature I'm doing now, and this is the strap that goes underneath the seat, and that is what really holds the seat up. This is to maintain rigidity in the coracle. The coracle has to be rigid under your feet. It's just a question of clenching these nails over. There we are, I've completed the framework, and I'm happy that that's about up to the top of my head. Now I'm using just 2 broomsticks just to straighten the sides out, and then I like to leave it for a day or so for the timbers to set. Now the bulkhead, or in Welsh the astell, is just 2 planks of wood, very fine planks of wood, and you have to do this by eye now. Make a template first and then saw it to shape. You get a thin plank of wood, 11 inches, then all the better. Now I'm just fitting it under the seat, and it fits in the aft section of the coracle. There's 3 uses. One is a support under the seat. Here I'm just testing it to see that it does support, but its other function is that it acts as a box when we got the coracle on our back, and of course it is a bulkhead to stop water splash. I'm using creosote, but if you want to make the coracle look pretty, you can paint it with white paint. I'm just drilling holes now in the bulkhead so that I'm able to get a permanent fixture to the seat itself and to the framework, so that the whole thing is held in place. These holes are just marked off so that they correspond to the seat itself. just a piece of wire and a couple of twists, and the thing is held in place. Now just cut off and twist back through the hole. Put 2 pegs in to hold the whole thing together. There he's just fixing it to the bottom. Just a few twists and cut off. The cover. Now we have to tailor the cover to suit the coracle, and I'm using unbleached calico in this case, 4.5 yards of unbleached calico, and I'm temporarily tacking it on as an upholsterer would to get the shape. Unbleached calico is much stronger than an ordinary bed sheet. It's much tougher and it's very light, of course. And the whole coracle should not weigh more than about 30 pounds. Yeah, that's all I need to do. Once I'm satisfied that I've tailored it properly, I can then cut off the excess, send it to be sewn. It's back from the tailor, so I can now fix it permanently, pull in again as tight as possible and making any adjustments that may be necessary. Making sure that you get a very good fit. In this instance now, I'd have to sew this by hand, and there we are, that's the coracle with its skin on it. To secure the canvas to the boat itself, we put an additional lath around the top of the coracle. Again, starting in the east and working round to the west. Keep all the offcuts. Now it's just a simple job of fitting all the offcuts into the top of the coracle. This is just finishing above the seat. You see I've got that support under the seat, that's the important one. And just a simple coach bolt through these now. And this holds the whole thing together. Just trim off the top so that you have a nice finish, and if there are gaps I use body filler, car body filler, just to fill in the top of the gunwale and finish off so that we have a nice laminated top. Painting is a question of thinning down ordinary household paint almost to the consistency of water and painting it on so that the paint thoroughly soaks through the canvas. After it's dried, I give it two coats of gloss paint. I've cut the wood just over an inch thick. It's about 6 foot long, 2 foot 6 blade. And I'm planing it down now so that I get a nice feather edge on the paddle itself. You want to have the shaft round, almost round in section, or rather oval rather than round, and for this purpose I'm using a spoke shape. And here we have the finished paddle, just a sandpaper just to make it presentable. Now then, nice cut like that now then to start. Now this is a fishing coracle, and the reason that we construct them this way is that they are very serviceable, snag free, and we bring the net over the front of the coracle, because in the fishing technique 2 coracles are used, one on each side of the river, and a net suspended between the 2 of us. Now. He's gone. He went through. He went through. Too small for this net. Hold on, let me just check, see if he's still there.